This is Special Report.
Black holes are one of the strangest things in existence.
Neil Armstrong may have seen extraterrestrials on the moon.
When he spies a discernible shape.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox, as always, your humbled host. We have an amazing guest for you this evening or this afternoon, wherever you are in the United States or around the world. Could be the morning, wherever you are, it doesn't make a difference. We are all here in the now. One of the things that we say here a lot is we are the ones we've been waiting for. And I truly believe that the guest this evening or this afternoon, whatever you are again, is one of those people. She is a woman who helps so many people with her ability to go ahead and let them see the internalization that we always touch on. And I felt like this was going to be a very good interview. I'm going to read her bio in just a moment. But before we do that, we have a few bills to pay. And if you haven't yet, I want you to go to a projectionofview.com and sign up for our Humanity Unplugged event, March 12th to March 20th. 111 speakers. I believe now it is up to 121 speakers. We are fully scheduled, fully booked in. This is a free event. And what we're going to do is we're going to give as much information to the people as we possibly can. There will be some other events coinciding within this event. They're going to be either after or before. We haven't decided yet. They're going to be paid events, but this one is going to be the biggest consciousness-based event ever. And that is truly one of the greatest things that we could put together. Last year was 55. We figured we would outdo ourselves and do 121 this year. So we're going to have so much fun with that. I just wanted to say we do have a sponsor for that event so far, and it's Paul Anthony Wallace, the author of the series. Of course, you guys all know we're very, very involved with what Paul Wallace does, the Scars of Eden, Escaping Eden, and the Echoes of Eden, which, as we said in one of the events we did the other day, was that, the Echoes of Eden is yet to be released, that it's just a cover art. So we're going to be here helping Paul push that magnificent book so we can instill this intelligence and this amazing, amazing information onto everybody that's out there. But without further ado, today, we have Meagan Mermaid. And Meagan Mermaid is a mindset coach and galactical guide. She's supporting star beings to heal their hearts and manifest their dreams into life. That's her ultimate passion. Her curriculum is empowerment, combines feminine energy, esoteric teachings, and modern manifestation principles to activate your soul's unique energetic blueprint. So without further ado, we're going to bring her in. Meagan, hello, how are you?
Hi, Rob. I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I am so happy you're here. And first and foremost, I wanted to say I love the work that you're doing. And when I've seen you live on Instagram, which we're going to post in the comments for everybody to follow her on Instagram and her TikTok. And when you talk on these lives, one of your directions, I so feel it, is that your energy is so exuberant that it's giving the people the ability to critically internalize what they're feeling and then turn it into a positive, whether it's negative or something that they may not want to face so easily. You give them that energy to really go and face that and empower them with that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, because I truly think that is exceptional work. And we need so much more of this in today's society, because it is very difficult to walk in the shoes of everybody in this day and time, right? So I think it's truly exceptional what you do, and I admire your work and appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It feels so nice to hear that. And yeah, I definitely feel it's important. And that's why I'm so grateful for the social media outlets that we have. Because at this time, creating community is one of the most important things that we can do and create those spaces where we can share vulnerably and honestly what's on our heart and realize that so many of us are going through the same things. And one of the things that I teach in my curriculum, Mermaid Mindset Makeover, as well as my forthcoming book, Mermaid Mystery School, rather, is creative alchemy, which is when we go through these difficult emotions, how to use that as fuel for our creative passion.
That's so amazing. And sometimes a lot of those creative avenues give us a lot of release and give us the ability to overcome specific things in our lives that we may not be able to overcome. It gives us these avenues to pursue something that we get passionate about. And that passion, it for me, it goes into research, but for others, it goes into art, it goes into writing, and it gives this air of positivity to everything that we do. And I think it's just amazing.
Thank you so much. I absolutely agree. Creativity is, well, the galactic energy teaches us that light is information and love is creativity. So essentially, when we're creating, that is our own unique version of love that we're giving out into the universe.
And that's when they say love is all we need. It's absolutely true. So a
Mhm.
question I have for you is when did you have, let's say, this awakening or knew that this was going to be the avenue in which you pursued to help people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like it came in stages for me. My spiritual awakening began, I would probably say, between 2011 and 2012. And I started to see repeating numbers and get all sorts of messages. And I kind of began this search of like, what is this? Where am I being led? And then around age 30 during my Saturn return, i I experienced this huge awakening where I wasn't living the life that I was supposed to be living. And so I went through this huge overhaul. I quit my job. I left my marriage at the time. I moved and I started to seek out mentors and healers and teachers and figure out, one, how to work through the childhood trauma that was coming up at that time to be seen and acknowledged and healed, and two, to figure out what I was here for. So it started out first connecting with a mentor who shared that I had this lineage that was connected to mermaids. And so I started really diving into the mermaid energy and how that is connected with the divine feminine. And then as I started that journey to become a channel, I really had to practice to hold higher and higher levels of frequency. And just about a year ago, I would say around the Lionsgate last August, was when my guides really started to ask me to step forward in the galactic energy. And now a lot of my work is focused on connecting starseeds to their star families and supporting them and understanding what their mission and their purpose is.
That's incredible. One of the things that we talk about a lot on the shows, I work in conjunction with another gentleman by the name of Omar and Watchers Talk. He's in the audience, and he's one of the people that I put the events on together with. Is we're
Mhm.
seeing this this rise in star seeds. It seems like every new generation coming through is a star seed. They learn faster. They create more at a younger age. I mean, have you noticed that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you're sharing that so many people are starting to come through, because I feel like a lot of us are starting to wake up and realize that, like, oh, well, wow, maybe I'm not from here. Or some of us might feel homesick for a place that we're not even aware of exactly. But the more of us that start to awaken and activate this remembrance, the more it kind of creates this ripple effect where others start to remember and think, oh, wow, this feels familiar to me too.
So true, so true. And a lot of the people that we work with, they definitely just don't. They have this idea that they know that they're not of this plane of existence, whether it be a fourth dimension, fifth dimension, galactical. And the family is growing, and the people that are coming into this community, that, like you said, is this. We're trying to generate this community. It seems as if it expands more and more with more knowledge as we get further and further out. And that's why when you were talking about, galactical guide and and this galactical knowledge that you have, it's truly intriguing to me because I feel like I'm on the precipice of it, and I'm
Mhm.
finding myself on that galactical, I guess, side of things instead of just this solar system and kind of keeping it in the histories of this planet or this plane or this incarnation of man, whatever we want to call it. There's so many different names for it now, but you know, so one of the things I wanted to ask you was going through this process of being getting these downloads of galactical knowledge, what is some of the most imperative information that you have come across that you think everybody should hear?
I love that question so much. I feel like the first one is that you're not alone. All of the star nations that come to me really share this message so deeply that we have so much support that we can call on. And when we think of the star nations, one of the most prevalent messages that they have for us is how to be better humans. So we can really see them as high frequency guides, mentors, and teachers. So, in their star nations, both individually and collectively, they've already reached a higher level of what I call activating the love frequency. So, what their role is to support us in our own personal journey of finding that. And sometimes what we experience when we're like magical or spiritual beings is that we tend to live a little bit higher in the upper chakras. We might be more interested in, meditations or all sorts of things that take us out of this earth plane. And all of that is amazing to raise our frequency. But the reason why we need to be in our lower chakras and in our bodies, and what the star nations teach us, is how to be successful in this matrix. We have to learn the rules before we break the rules. And so then, as we become successful humans, we can activate our creative genius, we can figure out what our mission is, but still be completely successful humans that pay our bills and, do all sorts of things that are required of us. But as we do those things, we have this awareness and this presence that allows us a little bit of elbow room to still be in the simulation, but really make the best of it so that we take back that control and sovereignty.
I love that. It's sort of like the 1 foot in, 1 foot out method where you can, and truly that's what being in the now is, right? Is being able to alleviate ourselves and take a bird's eye view of things, but also being in the present and being able to absorb and sort of deflect things that are happening around us so we don't get bombarded, especially if people are empathic in nature. Sometimes I take on too much, but being able to, I guess, discern from where you need to be in those moments is probably one of the biggest keys, especially for me. It was, I mean, because I love being able to meditate and get out there, but to be in the now and understand, excuse me, the information that's in front of me at the same time it was such a great transcending moment for me, and I think that's it was so perfectly said too. It's so amazing, so amazing. Um, Another question I had for you, and I wasn't sure of what this meant, but I'm sure you're going to tell us, is the Oracle for the Mermaids of Sirius. Can you explain what this is to the audience who may not know what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'll explain the term oracle. So an oracle is a channel, and when we think of the term channel, it's like a receptor of energy or information. So, myself as a galactic guide, I sort of serve as a translator, much like someone that would be interpreting a different language or sign language, where I can see and hear information, and then I can share that information in a way that people understand. So, a channel is someone that can receive information. An oracle is someone that receives information from a specific group or grouping of beings or consciousness. So the Mermaids of Sirius is the high council that I work for, and I'm sort of the spokesperson for. And they're a collective group of energy, kind of like angelic beings that are a part of the Sirius star nation. So what they embody and they represent is mermaid energy and starseed energy combined. So a lot of the information that they bring through is what is called mermaid consciousness, which is the pillars of self-love, self-forgiveness, and self-mastery. So they have a lot of teachings for us in how to use the energy of the archetype of the mermaid, which is being fully embodied, opening to sensuality, that wild femininity, and how to use that to our advantage in this third dimension. And so their teachings are really all sorts of ways in how we can embody creativity and just create a lot more joy and fun in some of the initiatory experiences that we go through. Learning, how to basically learning through love and play rather than through suffering, which we've learned through for far too long.
Absolutely. I mean, especially now, people are suffering daily. It seems like on this planet, and one of the things that I also love about what you do is the positivity you give to a lot of this. Around us is a ton of negativity, and being able to essentially get rid of that or not pay attention to that so much and focus on the things like love and happiness and the things that make us who we are truly as light beings and not being weighed down by that. So, I think it's incredible, incredible. And I know you do a lot of you do some digital courses too. Would you like to explain to the people of what these courses consist of and what you perceive for them to get out of it?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So I just completed my very first course, which is called Mermaid Mindset Makeover. And it's a 7-week journey to heal your heart and manifest your dream life. And so every day there is a message, a moment of flow, a dive deep, and it really embodies the energy of manifestation. But it goes from some of the ego-based manifestation that is so prevalent in like the law of attraction community to really manifesting things through what's called soul manifestation, which is following the bliss of your soul's true purpose. So that's a journey to really master your mindset. And then I'm also doing another live journey and a live course beginning on March 2nd for Astrology 101. So that's going to be about teaching the core components and foundational aspects of astrology. And I'm doing so from more of a starseed perspective, which is a little bit newer to those of us who may be more used to traditional astrology.
That's fantastic. I mean, they sound super amazing. And when we have new guests on, one of the things I love to do is to just probe their thoughts on a sense of how they feel about the things that I don't want to say what's going on in the world right now, but their thoughts on specific areas of interest of theirs. So, what are some of the areas of interest that you have right now? What do you feel is some of the things that you're most receptive to in today's society?
That's a great question. So, I feel like sometimes I'm so detached because I'm just constantly like in this creative laboratory of doing things. But for me, it's all about community and social media. So all of the ways that we can use these places to not only be seen but to activate our creativity. And I think one of the things that is such a great outlet for that is either on TikTok or Instagram making videos and reels and there's so much openness and space to be creative in these areas. So that's one of the things I've been really passionate about. And then other than that, I feel like I'm always just studying more, learning more, figuring out because I go live every single day on 2 platforms. So it's really about what can I learn and what information is coming to me so that I can then share it with my community. So that keeps me pretty busy.
No, I absolutely. I understand 110%. Even just doing these shows, I don't really have a set schedule either. I just kind of do whenever whenever I have a guest or I feel that there's information that needs to come out, kind of like not a set schedule, which kind of it's a hindrance at some points, but it's also really good because I never feel like I run out of things to say at the same time. So, but every day being live is incredible. And I've put Megan's Instagram and TikTok back to back in the chat for everybody to go and follow and subscribe. Also, we're going to be putting Megan's YouTube in there, and we have their main website as well, which is, I mean, there's so much here. We have channel, you can do galactical readings and things like that. So, you know, one of the things that I'm sure you get a lot is, what is your process for channeling? I mean, when you're getting ready to really sit down and try and does it come spontaneously, or do you sit down in a meditation state and try and really bring the entities to you to get that message?
Yeah, great question. So, I always have the same process, whether it's channeling for a client or channeling for a group of people, like I do on my monthly Starseed journeys, or even for myself. And it's sort of like a series of code, almost like you would think of in a computer system, because we do have a very similar operating system. So it's a series of commands that I say, calling in the beings, opening up my etheric body, stepping through a stargate, and then going into wherever the stargate takes me to where I'll be meeting those beings. So for me, it's been easiest to follow this same series of commands, because that awakens that channel part of me that, okay, now we're moving from this natural state that we're in to a channeled state. And I practice what's called bilocation. So, the physical form stays here, but then our awareness is also somewhere else. So I feel like that's been really advantageous for me, especially because there's always so much going on here. So when you get used to a practice of being in more than one place at once, it doesn't bother you so much anymore. So before, where like noises or dogs barking outside or things like that might have affected my flow, I'm able now to be much more focused on what I'm doing, while also allowing all of those other things, kind of like what we would learn in meditation or anything like that, where the sounds will never stop, but we can still be present in what we're doing regardless.
That's it must be difficult. I have not achieved bilocation yet. I've done a little bit of remote viewing and things like that, but I'm sure it's super difficult to reach that level. And everybody's different, of course. There's infinite paths to source, but all those roads lead back to an internalization, which is
Right.
truly what it comes down to. So, you know, another question I had for you is, you had a few activations on your website too, when I was looking through it, and can you explain some of those different activations and what they represent to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So another thing that I've been asked to do is every month do a starseed journey or an activation with one of the star nations. So that began in December, and it was with the Lyrans about activating the pleasure principles. So the Lyrans are one of the most ancient star nations, and they were one of the original seeders of consciousness here on this earth. And so their message to us is how to utilize the energy of play to generate more productivity, rather than the opposite, where sometimes we really focus so much on completing all of the things on our to-do list, and then maybe if we have time to focus on play or joy or fun. And it's a very similar message to the mermaids, where it's the play that is activating everything, getting into that joy frequency. So that replay is really about how to embody the energy of play to increase your productivity. The journey that I did with the Syrians last month was really all about how to activate the blueprint for success in 2022. So I really recommend that journey for anyone that is just opening to starseed consciousness, or that is getting into leadership, or has some type of a creative offering, or overcoming any fears of being seen in what they're doing. And the Syrians offered a lot of healing empowerments and teachings in how to overcome some of the viral programming that has been a part of our consciousness to do those things that we came here to do. And the journey that I'm doing this month is with the Pleiadians, and it's all about activating the love frequency and how to embody all forms of love, starting with self-love, and then relationships, and then finally a love of service, and how all of these things sort of build upon the next.
That's incredible, incredible stuff. I mean, I'm definitely going to have to attend some of these activations too, because it's just some of that information I would say novice to just yet in my areas of study, but I'm so interested in it, and I'm sure everybody else in the audience is too. A lot of this information. We just had a gentleman by the name of Ishmael Perez on too, and he was talking about a lot of this galactical information, and it's something new to a lot of people. And somebody like myself, well, what would be some advice that you might give to those people who are trying to look into it for themselves as well, or research points that they could go to and try and get this information that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like the activations are a great first step because they're a low ticket item. They're only $22 for the replay or for the ones that are occurring now. And then I'm also sharing a lot of free starseed education on my YouTube channel. So I would just use your discernment and just start searching for things. If you feel called to, like, say if the Pleiadians or the Syrians or the Arcturians, even if that name, you may not know much about it, but sometimes even just the name sometimes brings up like a remembrance of that. One of the channel texts that I recommend for anyone starting out on this journey is a book called Bringers of the Dawn by Barbara Messiniak. And that was written in the early 90s. But I mean, I was listening to it yesterday again, and it's so powerful and clear for the times that we're in now. So that's a great one. And then if you're interested in diving deeper and understanding more about your star family and your specific message, I would encourage you to inquire about the Galactic channeled readings that I do, where you get more of that personal, more detailed illustration of what you're here to do and how your star family can help you. And as well as like practical tips and ways to start connecting with them yourself on a daily basis.
Awesome, awesome. One of the question I have on top of that is now, when people find out this information that you're giving to them through these galactical readings, what changes does that bring about in those people? And what I want to phrase this properly, but what do they gain or benefit from finding this information out? Is really the question, because I think that's important for people to understand that they, once they get this info, what it does for them. Because I think it's so important that they find these things out. But some people are like, well, whatever. But it's important stuff, and it's definitely something that people need to get a hold of. So what happens normally or usually to people when they get this type of information?
That's a great question, Rob. So it really depends. I feel like one of the things that I experience a lot is confirmation and relief, where it's like, wow, I was already feeling that. And it is safe to trust my intuition about the things that are coming to me, or I can, trust that this idea that I'm getting is real, or I'm not crazy. And then another thing that I hear a lot is, just this appreciation for kind of getting some marching orders. And that's sort of what your star family provides, especially if you're a Syrian or working with the Syrians, is they'll sort of give you these really basic things like, you need to be going to bed by this time. You need to be moving your body. Don't eat this food. Like, start this, finish your website. This is the thing that needs to be completed in the next 3 months. And so it can feel helpful, kind of like to have these mentors that are breaking down this big picture or this image that might feel very abstract to, where do I start? What is the next step? What are things that are going to support me in my body and, and all of the other things that I'm doing?
I totally agree with that. And one of the big things you said there is discernment. And discernment, especially for, I mean, I like to keep it on the eye. That's why I keep saying, especially for me. But, discernment was one of the biggest things that I had to juggle with, because especially doing research, we get all this information. And how do we know that this is particularly exactly what it's supposed to be, or our idea of what it is, right? And I think that discernment, which is why it was kind of like a loaded question I asked you, because I knew, but I thought people needed to hear that, because we get a lot of times people are like, well, this information you're talking about is very conspiracy-esque, like myself, and fringy, but it it begs to differ that these people don't understand, right? And once they understand and get that, I want to say, that itch that needs to be scratched about finding the information out, it opens up like whole new worlds for people. And I'm sure you've encountered that as well.
Yeah, I think discernment is one of the most important things that we can ever use as a tool in our search for knowledge and information, because there's so much out there. And we always have to keep asking ourselves, like with whatever information we get, does this feel true for me? And how does it make me feel? Because, there's all sorts of people that are saying this or that, but you've got to decide, number one, if this information is useful and relevant to you. And number two, if it's helpful or hurting you. And especially for people that are very sensitive or very empathic, going down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and understanding all of this stuff that's happening with the dark agendas might not necessarily be the most helpful thing for you in this moment, especially if you feel that there's not an action step that you can take to alleviate some of that. So it's really just about one, does this information feel true? And number two, is it helping you or supporting you in this present moment?
Love that answer. That's so right on the money. It's so right on the money, and I agree with you 110%. We have a question from Omar in the audience, my friend from Watchers Talk. He said, "What are some of the traits of people that would identify them with the certain star family groups?"
I love that question. Thank you, Omar. So we can start with the Lyrans, which you would feel very connected to the earth. Maybe there's this energy of like music or creativity and just kind of wanting to have fun. You might feel very like adventurous. And the Lyrans are one of the star nations that, because they're so ancient and they've done so much of their work in previous incarnations, that this cycle is more about just embodying love and having fun. So if you feel like you're more go with the flow, then you might have that Lyran starseed energy in you. If you're like me, for example, who I'm like 110% Syrian, then you might be more of like a type A person where you're like, I have a very specific mission. I need to do this. I need to accomplish this. And like you have this like very deep level of excellence that you strive for in all things. And you might feel more structured. You might also be interested in speaking or in figuring out like how to make the world better for like collective energy. So Syrians are often focused more on collective groups of people rather than the one-on-one individual basis. Pleiadians, on the other hand, they're more in the feminine energy of receptivity and love. And so they're interested in beauty and diplomacy and this energy of flow. They might also be very musical or very creative. And the Pleiadian mission, rather, is not as specific as the Syrian. It's more just about seeding this frequency of love. Andromedans are master healers, and you might often feel very shy, a little bit more reserved, but you're very powerful. And so for an Andromedan, it's about recognizing your power, even if it feels a little bit scary to step into that space of being seen. And the Nocturians are very scientific. They're very interested in the inner workings of the universe, or even just how anything works. They're more technology based and more like science, factual numbers, things like that. So those are some of the main ones that I work with. So hopefully that was a little helpful for you to kind of see that breakdown.
I think that was great. I see a lot of those different traits in myself. So is it possible to be from more than one star family if we're looking at this as a whole?
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of starseeds do resonate with more than one. And that's because you can think of star nations almost like countries here on Earth. So you can travel and you can spend time in more than just one. So if you resonate with more than one, it's often because the technology or the information or the healing energy from those places are both needed, or multiple places are needed for whatever it is that you're doing at this time.
Awesome, awesome. That's, and because a lot of the different aspects, people are like, well, I feel a little bit closer to that, a little bit closer to this, and I understand that because I feel I resonate with a few of them, and it's pretty incredible once you hear some of these traits. And that was a great question, Omar. Absolutely
Yeah,
great
thank you,
question.
Omar.
Now we've gone through a little bit of what you do. So now I would like to ask a couple of questions that are more geared towards some of the stories of things that you've experienced while doing this work. I mean, what is some of the I want to say the wildest messages that you've either channeled or sessions that you've been in, and what exactly happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? It really varies because there's so much, but it's amazing how, sometimes a client will come to me and it's with a star nation I've never even worked with, but because they were drawn to me, I'll start to learn more about that. Like I had a client that was a part of the Montauk Star Nation, which was one I'd never even heard of. And through her session, I saw almost like this whole movie of all of these things that had happened to her. And there was a lot of like healing. And sometimes the Star Nations come through with messages from the Akashic records where it will not only be like experiences from those places, but how they connect to Earth. And so I feel like for me, every session is always just something brand new where it's amazing all of the information that comes through. And also I love when I'm doing something and something very random will come through, like you need barley grass and spirulina, and then the client will say, oh my gosh, I have that in my cabinet. And it's almost like the silliest things are the confirmation that they needed, that it's like safe to trust themselves or safe to listen to this guidance. So yeah, there's so many. I feel like I can't really think of one. I just know that every single time I open that space for a new journey or a new client session, that I'm constantly surprised and amazed at what I get to be a part of.
That's incredible. That's wild too, though. I mean, there's a lot of synchronicity when we start listening to the universe or the star, the guides when they come through, and it's an epic event. If I've been through a few activations and channels, and I haven't been able to perfect the channeling myself. I'm working on it, but there's so much that goes with it too. It's so wild, and that's why like I love this subject, because I feel like I know a lot of things, but this is not one of them. So I'm learning as we go too, which is I like to call myself and the people that listen to this specific show and the people that we kind of resonate with the forever students, because we like to stay learning and always dig our toes into something brand new. And for me, this is sort of brand new, and I'm enjoying it 110%. We have another question from Omar, and he asks, when twin starseeds incarnate, would they come from the similar star family or two of them?
That's a great question. So twin star seeds, would you be referring to the term twin flame? I feel like that might be what people refer to.
I think he's talking about if twins that were star seeds.
Oh, I see. Okay. Great question. I have not actually encountered any twin star seeds. So I feel like they could come from different star nations, or, when we think of people that incarnate, we generally come with a soul group. So the people that you resonate with are often part of your soul family. We can have a star family and then a soul family of incarnated souls here on Earth. So because of that, we often play out different roles in different incarnations. So someone that might be your twin now could have been like a friend or someone else in another lifetime. So it's very possible that they could come from the same star nation or a different one, but I would really let go of some of those terms of what they are to you now and rather get more into the energy of what this relationship means for you, and how presently they're a mirror to some of the things that you want to know or learn.
Awesome. Awesome. We have another question from Conrad, and it says, which star has the feline humanoids and what is their directive and traits? Thanks.
Yeah, great question. So that is the Lyran Star Nation. And so the Lyrans have like these very cat-like features. And a lot of Lyrans, so what happened is there was this intergalactic war about 300,000 years ago, and the Lyrans' home planet was destroyed. So they ended up having to go through all sorts of other places, and a lot of them went to the Syrian Star Nation. A lot of them went to Earth, which is why Lyrans feel so comfortable on Earth. But because of that, there are sometimes some feline characteristics in Syrians as well. And so I would just go back to what I had shared about the energy of Lyrans, where it's really just about play and joy and fun and almost like this natural innocence. And you could also, when we think about the traits of animal medicine, what does the cat represent? It often represents independence. It also represents feminine energy, and there's this leadership quality in them as well, especially the big cat. So I would encourage you to figure out what qualities you're attracted to in this feline energy, and how maybe that's playing out for you in the galactic energy that you embody.
It's wild you say that too, and this is what I mean by synchronicities. Is I've always had an adept ability to get cats to be able to encounter me and not be, cats they like to be standoffish and kind of swat at you. I rarely ever get that. I'll lock eyes with them, bat my eyes a couple times, and then they're just in love with me for the next however long I'm there for. And
Mhm.
now I'm wondering if there is a is that a correlation of something from the Lyran star system as opposed to just me being good with cats. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you shared that, Rob, because I feel like it's another reminder that it is safe to trust our intuition, and that if you're feeling that connection and that memory surfaced for you in this talk, it's very, very likely that you do have a Lyran energy, and many Lyrans do experience that this very strong connection to feline energy and this comfortability around it. So, absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. We have another question from Omar, and he's got a lot of great questions. He's
Yeah.
very adept in this as well. He says, "What about in nature of good and evil star seeds? Are there evil star seeds as well?"
That's such a great question. So we live in a free will universe, so which means that we can choose to learn in any way possible. So most of the star nations are very all about love, and they have our best interests at heart. But just like people, there are some that don't, and there are some very clear ones that have some different agendas, and a lot of their energy has been creating a lot of issues here on earth for a very long time. So I feel like, again, that's where we practice that energy of discernment. So whenever you're working with any energy, whether it's galactic energy or ancestors or anything where you are working with another consciousness, you always want to check in and ask yourself how you feel about it, and if you feel that it's adding value to you. And if something feels off, or if you feel drained, or anything like that, anxiety, fear, your body will usually give you some type of a clue that something is off. So it's very important to listen to that.
I think my internet might have dropped out really
Oh
quickly.
yeah, I
It's
heard it
it,
for a
it's
minute.
quite a bit, but it's just in this area too. But I'm back. I'm sorry about that. And that kind of piggybacks me off of that question. Something that I would ask you is, if we're getting into kind of like stories and stuff, is have you ever had a channel message from an entity that you would call maybe a non-desirable entity that you would want in your presence? And if so, what happened during that channeling session?
That's a great question. So usually, the container that I set is encoded to only surround myself with the highest vibrations of love, truth, healing, and peace. So I encode and create a container that makes sure that nothing unsavory can come through. But I did do a session once with a client that had a star family connected to the Orion star nation. And the Orions had a large population of reptilians. And so when we think of reptilians, those are often one of the names that we hear that might be a part of these darker agendas. But this particular being was asking to be a part of this client's star family because he wanted to help heal and clear some of the karma that he had created in previous lifetimes from learning through darkness or learning through fear and suffering. So in that moment, as a guide, I asked that client if he would give that being permission to be a part of his inner circle with that knowledge, and so the client did choose to do so. So I feel like it's just important to understand that not everyone is all bad or all good in this series of of consciousness and incarnations that we go through. And when I was doing mediumship, I experienced the same thing where often souls that had passed, they can choose to either incarnate again right away, or they can choose to help these beings that are still here to clear some of their karma so that when they do come back into a body, they can come back kind of like at a higher level of the game.
Like that, that's so true. The universe has so many different shades of gray, right? Where
Mhm.
it's each day brings something different, and I think that especially during mediumship and things like that, some of the characteristics that we had as physical beings transfers over into when we become that etherical being, as opposed to the same types of character traits and abilities to have the mood swings and everything like that. It doesn't matter where we are within the universe. It seems as if we still follow that same type of archetype of personality and consciousness, because that is where it comes from, is that awareness.
Mhm.
It's the counteractive to a reaction, or something like that. And yeah, that was just so well put. And we have another question from Ange,
Sure.
and it says, "Cat and lion energies, are they the same? And are both feline energy?"
I love that question. So it's funny because when we think about cats and lions and we look at their bone structure, they're very similar. And there are some distinct differences where oftentimes lions are known to have more ferocity. They're more focused on hunting, whereas we think of the cat, it's not going to have those same things. So what I would ask you is what do you feel? What are the relations between the two, and what do you feel are the differences? Cats and lions would both be associated with Lyrans, and lions specifically would be associated with Sirius. So if you feel very connected to big cats such as lions, you might have a strong connection to the Sirian star nation.
That's wild that the smaller cats would be towards the Lyran, and then the bigger cats would be Syrian. That's kind of fun. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy, but it shows you how, again, the universe sometimes works in mysterious ways that we may not be privy to at those moments. And we have another question from Omar. It says, "Have you ever channeled someone from outside of the universe?"
That's a great question, Omar. Not yet, not at this time. I feel like my focus has been so focused on galactic energy and creating the space for these beings to meet their or for starseeds to meet their star families. I haven't experienced that, but I'm sure, like you shared, it's a big universe and anything is possible. There's multiple timelines, multiple universes, multiple spaces. So
That's pretty wild, and I think that's kind of what he was referring to, as different maybe dimensions or timelines and things like that. But when you're channeling, and you say that sometimes you get like this motion picture movie, does it give you like almost like an in-depth history of maybe the star family, or the area in which in the solar system that entity is kind of coming from?
exactly, yeah. And so it really just depends on the information that we need to know in this moment. So, as I shared, light is information. And so, if we were to remember all of the information of all of our incarnations, of all of our lifetimes, it would be too much. Like, we would literally explode from that information. So, when I do these client readings, I will get the information from previous lifetimes or from their lifetimes and incarnations in other star nations that are most relevant to the experiences that they're going through. And oftentimes, the star nations work in what they call chapters, which is about 3-month long periods. That's about all of the information that we're able to integrate at once. So it's sort of like peeling an onion. So if I have returning clients, oftentimes they'll get a piece of information. They work with that and how it relates to this lifetime. And then they can come back and receive kind of like that next step or that next level of information that's available.
That's incredible. I mean, I can't wait to I guess get to that moment where I can do that too, because history is kind of like my niche. I love history. I love forgotten knowledge, or civilizations that passed and maybe didn't make it to the history books, and investigating. So that to me would seem just out of this world to figure out some of that information. I mean, it's probably so massive. And that's one of the reasons why personally I'm creating a database, and a database. This is going to be one of the talks that goes into the database, all of my episodes that I do on the show,
Mhm.
but also books, consciousness, it's spirituality, ancient teachings, and channeling and remote viewing is something that I've really dove into over the last few weeks, and it's such an in-depth process that, you know, did it take you a long time from your beginnings of awakening to get to this point where you're able to just get into that ability to channel, or was it something that just happened instantly for you?
Yeah, great question. It definitely did take time. And when we think of our spiritual gifts and abilities, it's very much like a muscle that we would be working out at the gym. So it really does require practice, and it requires discipline, and not even just so much of showing up to do the channeling, but showing up in the rest of our life to be a keeper of this consciousness. So it's taken me several years. And I would say that when I first started out actively doing this type of work was about maybe almost 7 years ago. And at that time, my main gifts were clairaudience. So I would hear information, or claircognizance, where I would just know. And it was probably in about the last year or so that my gift of clairvoyance, of really seeing things, started to open up a lot. And I get that question a lot from clients of, when will I start to see things? Or, when will I start to experience things on a deeper level? And I feel like, part of it is the showing up and doing all of the work in the third dimension to keep our body really strong for that. And then the other part is just trusting that you're doing it exactly right, even if your experience is different than someone else's.
Well, again, of course, that goes to that infinite paths, right? There is definitely
Mhm.
infinite paths, but all of those paths, you can say that they lead to source, but that would mean that it would lead. I think that it leads to a road. All those paths end up on a road, and that road leads to the internalization of everything, and that is source. That is that source energy that you're looking for. So I guess it kind of does lead to source, but there's a road in between that you have to really clear the highway for yourself to be able to go internally and assess and really be able to pull, I guess, some of the information that you need, or access the information that you need to achieve these specific achievements that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you shared it as roads, because when we think of the energy of source, it's so infinite. It would never be possible to understand and reach all of the roads. And that's why we have so many incarnations and in so many places to learn all these aspects and aspects and aspects and aspects. So um I feel like it's so important to just trust the road that you're on, and recognize that it's not linear as well, that you may get to a certain point here, and then you'll have to go back and, redo this or redo that. And then you'll come back to this, but it'll be at a higher level. And it's sort of, the same way where I experience this reality that we're living in almost like a simulation. And so, or a school is another way that we could put it. So oftentimes we'll experience the same types of experience, the same types of people, and it might seem like we're going backwards, but really we're showing up to that same level, but with more awareness and with a different perspective, so that we can get the blessing or the pearl of that in a deeper way. So yeah, it's interesting. It's infinite, really.
Absolutely agree with that. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's just it's this awareness that we're coming into our own too. And one of the things that I've been seeing too is we talk about this new earth, or this new paradigm, or this great awakening, shall we say. And I do feel like that a lot of people, because of all of the traumatic experiences, I guess, that are going on around them, or what they're feeling, and that's what's kind of bringing everybody into this moment of this internalization, and that is exponentially growing with the number of people who are experiencing that, and then their awareness becomes bigger and better, and kind of they more encapsulating into their regular everyday life as it would have been before. You know what I mean?
Right. Hmm.
All right. So we've got another question from Omar. And he says,
Sure.
are we born with consciousness? And do we have to access this consciousness?
I love that question, Omar. Thank you for so many great questions today. So I feel like we are consciousness, we are awareness. As starseeds, especially, we've chosen to come here. It's like we're on this undercover mission where it might look like you're just a regular person going to your regular job, but underneath that, you're actually like a grid holder creating this frequency that is helping to alchemize some of the energy grids or electromagnetic waves that are creating this simulation that we're a part of. So I feel like we temporarily chose to forget, and that as we open up, as you were sharing, Rob, the more of us that are waking up, the easier it is. It's like we're all just going in and turning the lights on in all of these houses, and then as other people are walking by, they see the light in that house, and then their house gets turned on, and it becomes this ripple effect.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And it's becoming more prevalent. I really do it, and it's a great thing because the community is just growing, and it's at such a rate now that there's so many different people at so many different levels that you can find a community and grow within a group that'll help. Everybody, not everybody's at the same level, as we always know, but there's
Mhm.
definitely people around you that are at your level, and you guys can connect and grow together. That's what I've done with Omar a lot. He was a lot further ahead than I was in the very beginning. But not that we've evened out, where nobody's ever the same, but we contextualize a lot of what we learn with each other because it helps either of us to bounce it off somebody and kind of talk about it. And we have just some of the best conversations, and that's why we're like brothers too. And it's really great to see him in here asking the questions, and they're great questions, Omar, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
thank you.
So we're coming towards the end of this journey into
Mhm.
my universe today, and one of the things I wanted to ask you is that do you feel that there is a message that you have to give to the people, and if so, what would that be?
That's a great question. Uh, I feel like the message that I share is twofold. First, that you are here with a specific purpose, a specific energetic blueprint that no one else will be able to match or copy or fulfill. So your first job is to figure out what that is, to figure out what lights you up, what you're passionate about. And then number two, figure out how you can use those natural abilities and that passion to be in service to the greater good. And so once you have those two aspects mastered, or at least you're on the path to have those mastered, that's where everything starts to change and transform and the momentum builds, because that's where you plug in and activate that consciousness of why you're here. And so it's not about a destination. It's just about once you have that as the intention, you'll always be exactly where you're supposed to be. And that's where the synchronicities start to happen, everything. So it's just, what is that step for you today to start to work towards those two things?
Absolutely agree. It's not about the destination. It's always about the journey. It's about the
Yeah.
now, and it's so important to remain in that now. And it took me a very long time to really establish that for myself. And I was always worrying about what was next. What can we do? Even now, I have to kind of catch myself sometimes to be like, all right, come on back. Come on back. You know what I mean? Let's get back to what we're doing now. And, I just appreciate what you do, Megan. And I think it's absolutely incredible. It's been an honor and a privilege to talk with you today. And just keep doing what you do because I really and truly feel that the earth and this plane of existence needs more people like you right now.
Thank you, Rob. It was a pleasure to speak with you as well. And thank you as well for the service that you're doing and for creating this platform for so many others. So
Oh,
it
thank you.
was
Thank
uh,
you.
it was so wonderful to be here. And thank you everyone for your questions. It was great to have that conversation with you as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So, with that being said, everybody, this has been Full Spectrum Universe with Megan Mermaid, and all of her social media links are also in the description, but they are also in the chat. I've been putting them up as we've been going all day or since we've been here. And check them out. I mean, her TikTok is incredible. Her Instagram lives are great. I was just in one before we jumped into this. And I've seen the message is pure and the intention is clear, and I appreciate it, as I know you will. And with that being said, I hope everybody has a great rest of the evening. My name is Rob Yox. That's Megan, and I'm going to say good night.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.